He was one of North Korea's youngest and most exceptional agents. He looked like an ordinary, handsome teenager. But behind that innocent appearance was a highly trained operative who could fight with incredible precision. Not long ago, Dae-jo had been transferred to a high school in South Korea. He barely finished introducing himself before the entire class burst into laughter. Even his name sounded old-fashioned and unusual to them. The teacher also found his name strange and assigned him a seat in the far corner at the back of the classroom. Nobody had any idea that this quiet transfer student had not come to South Korea simply to study. He was there undercover, carrying out a secret mission for North Korea. Dae-jo's father had been killed during a previous mission, and before his death, he had passed the responsibility of the operation on to his son. Dae-jo now had to complete the mission while pretending to be an ordinary student. At first, he tried to stay unnoticed and blend in with everyone else. But after school, several bullies surrounded him. They were not simply looking for someone to pick on. They had been extorting money from his classmate, Han, under the excuse of providing her protection. One of them shoved Dae-jo, testing whether the new student would fight back. Dae-jo deliberately ignored him and tried to walk away. The gang leader took this as an insult and challenged him to a fight on the school rooftop. Once they reached the roof, the leader immediately punched Dae-jo in the face. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. However, Dae-jo deliberately held himself back, because revealing his real abilities would expose his identity. The bully continued mocking him while Dae-jo remained completely calm. Then one of the gang members searched Dae-jo and took his wallet. They were surprised to find so much money inside. But then the leader pulled out a photograph. It showed Dae-jo standing beside his father and his younger sister. His father was already dead, leaving only Dae-jo and his sister behind. The bully cruelly made fun of his sister. That crossed a line. His sister was Dae-jo's greatest weakness, but he forced himself to remain calm. He demanded the photograph back and told them they could keep the money if they simply ended the matter there. His courage only made the gang leader angrier, and the bully rushed toward him again. Before things could get worse, their teacher arrived and stopped the confrontation. Dae-jo quietly put the photograph back in his pocket. But from that moment on, the gang leader developed a personal hatred toward him. The following day, the teacher ordered everyone to hand over their phones. Anyone caught with one would be punished. When several students refused to cooperate, the teacher punished the entire class by making them clean the school windows after classes ended. While they work together, Han begins to notice that Dae-jo is not the cold and strange person everyone thinks he is. He is quiet, but he treats her with unexpected kindness. That night, however, Dae-jo receives a secret package from his organization. Inside is information about his real mission. A dangerous North Korean defector known by the codename Dipper has been hunting undercover agents. The organization considers eliminating Dipper its highest priority. Dae-jo immediately begins following the clues. His first destination is a small lottery shop operated by a North Korean contact. After giving the secret code, Dae-jo receives a specially prepared cake. Hidden inside are the pieces of a handgun. The following day, Dae-jo visits a boxing gym during his lunch break. He confronts the owner and demands information about Dipper. The man refuses to cooperate, leading to a fierce fight. Dae-jo quickly gains the advantage and forces him to reveal that a pig butcher recently met with Dipper. The gym owner then attempts to attack Dae-jo from behind, but Dae-jo reacts immediately and defeats him. The confrontation becomes a turning point for Dae-jo, as the violence of his mission begins weighing on him emotionally. Yet he has no time to stop. When Dae-jo returns to school, he sees Han being bullied again. Several boys are throwing garbage at her and ordering her to clean it up. Instead of ignoring her, Dae-jo quietly helps her. The bullies begin teasing them, but Dae-jo completely ignores their jokes. Later, Dae-jo surprises the teacher by answering a difficult question correctly. Han becomes even more curious about the mysterious transfer student. But the bullies soon target Han again. They drag her into the science laboratory and demand money from her, including the money she earned from her part-time job. Dae-jo discovers what is happening and walks into the room. The bullies try to intimidate him with their numbers, but they quickly discover that they have made a huge mistake. Dae-jo defeats them one after another and finally stops their leader as well. Han is overwhelmed by everything that has happened and breaks down in tears. Afterward, Han suddenly stops attending school. Dae-jo becomes worried and asks about her whereabouts. Eventually, he receives permission to leave school and searches for her at the cafe where she used to work. But Han has already quit. On his way home, Dae-jo unexpectedly finds her working at a dance studio. Han has always dreamed of becoming a dancer, and she used to admire the performers through the studio windows. Because she needs a parent signature for her new job, Han asks Dae-jo to pretend to be her older brother. Although Dae-jo knows that getting emotionally involved with someone could be dangerous, he agrees. Spending time with Han reminds him of his younger sister back in North Korea. His sister also loves the arts, but she is being used by the North Korean authorities as leverage against him. Dae-jo's greatest motivation is to complete his mission and return to his sister. That evening, Dae-jo and Han walk together under an umbrella. Their friendship gives Dae-jo a rare moment of peace. He does not view Han romantically. Instead, her situation reminds him strongly of his younger sister. Han eventually reveals that she lost her parents when she was very young and has survived mostly through part-time jobs. The next day, Dae-jo follows another clue and visits a butcher shop. The butcher reveals information connected to Dipper, allowing Dae-jo to identify his vehicle. However, the butcher suddenly turns on him and attacks. Dae-jo manages to defend himself and escape with the information he needs. Using the vehicle's license plate, Dae-jo tracks down Dipper. He follows Dipper on his motorcycle and waits for the perfect opportunity. At a red light, Dae-jo attempts to attack, but Dipper notices the danger and speeds away. Dae-jo manages to damage the vehicle, causing it to crash. He approaches the wreckage, ready to finish the mission, but a crowd quickly gathers around the accident. People begin recording the scene with their phones. Realizing that killing Dipper in front of witnesses could expose his identity, Dae-jo is forced to leave. Unfortunately, Dipper has already recognized him. That night, Dipper and his men locate Dae-jo's safe house. The people pretending to be Dae-jo's parents are actually North Korean agents themselves. Dipper interrogates them about the location of a hidden fortune in diamonds. Both Dae-jo's organization and Dipper are searching for the same valuable stash, which could be worth enough to finance major political ambitions. Dipper eventually obtains the combination to the safe and kills Dae-jo's mother. Upstairs, Dae-jo's father is listening to music and has no idea what is happening. Dipper confronts him as well and he is killed. Dipper's men take the diamonds and leave, while Dipper stays behind to wait for Dae-jo. When Dae-jo finally returns home, he immediately discovers what happened. His mission has now become deeply personal. Dae-jo attacks Dipper without hesitation. The two agents engage in a brutal hand-to-hand battle. Dipper fights with incredible aggression, but Dae-jo's training allows him to block and counter his attacks. Furniture is destroyed as the fight moves throughout the house. Dipper eventually realizes that he cannot defeat Dae-jo through pure hand-to-hand combat, so he pulls out a gun. Dae-jo immediately grabs his arm and prevents him from using it. After a violent struggle, Dae-jo manages to gain control of the weapon. But both men are thrown hard against the wall. Neither of them is willing to surrender. Dae-jo is fighting for more than revenge. Dae-jo quickly moves behind him and uses the cable to restrain him. For a moment, it seems like Dae-jo has finally won. But Dipper refuses to give up. He secretly pulls out a knife and manages to turn the situation around. Dae-jo narrowly avoids the blade and uses a nearby object to block the attack. After a brief struggle, he knocks the knife away and manages to defeat Dipper. The fight is finally over. However, Dae-jo is seriously injured. When he looks at the bodies of the undercover agents who had been protecting him, he is overwhelmed with guilt. He knows the safe house is no longer secure and that the authorities could discover his true identity if they find enough evidence. So Dae-jo decides to destroy every possible trace. He damages the gas line, places the blood-covered weapons inside a microwave, and escapes the house on his motorcycle. Moments later, the building catches fire. Police and investigators quickly surround the area. Although much of the evidence is destroyed, they discover an important clue among the remains: a piece of clothing containing Dae-jo's name. Using that clue, the authorities begin investigating the mysterious transfer student. Soon, they uncover the shocking truth. Dae-jo is not an ordinary teenager. He is a North Korean agent. Knowing his identity has been exposed, Dae-jo rushes toward his designated extraction point. There, he meets an elderly woman who has been helping him as his handler. She takes care of Dae-jo and helps him recover. For the first time, Dae-jo believes he might finally be able to return home and see his younger sister. Then another package arrives. Inside is his final assignment. The stolen diamonds must be recovered, and his superiors promise that completing the mission will allow him to meet his sister. That promise gives Dae-jo a reason to keep going. He follows the information and reaches the location where the diamonds are being exchanged. Armed with a suppressed handgun, he silently takes down 2 guards. But the operation quickly goes wrong. The remaining men realize that someone is inside the building. Suddenly, a grenade explodes, killing several members of the group. One survivor grabs the briefcase containing the diamonds and runs away. Dae-jo follows him and eventually discovers him hiding inside an industrial duct. Even though his mission is still incomplete, Dae-jo takes a moment to buy something for his sister. He also buys a sweater for the elderly woman who had cared for him, hoping it will serve as a final gift of gratitude. Before leaving, he meets Han one last time. He simply wants to say goodbye to the person who had treated him with genuine kindness during his difficult life in South Korea. Soon afterward, Dae-jo reaches the extraction point. His contact tells him that everything has gone according to plan and that he will soon be able to return to Pyongyang. Dae-jo finally allows himself to believe that his nightmare is ending. He imagines seeing his sister again. But then, without warning, his own contact attacks him. Dae-jo manages to survive and overpower him, but he cannot understand why someone from his own country would betray him. Then the truth is revealed. North Korean agents sent abroad are never truly expected to return. They are considered disposable. According to the contact, an agent can either die at the hands of the enemy or be eliminated by his own government once the mission is complete. Dae-jo suddenly understands what happened to his father. His father had also completed a mission and was killed while trying to return home. Realizing that there is no future waiting for him in North Korea, Dae-jo eliminates the contact and escapes. Badly wounded, he heads toward the elderly woman's shop, hoping to find answers. But when he arrives, he finds the area surrounded by police. The woman's identity has also been discovered. When she sees Dae-jo nearby, she desperately tells him to run. The police arrest her. While the police chief notices Dae-jo's suspicious reaction, he begins following him. Dae-jo manages to escape and eventually reaches Han's apartment. Han takes care of his injuries and allows him to recover. Meanwhile, she learns Dae-jo's true identity through the news. She discovers that he is a North Korean agent, but she refuses to turn him in. Han understands that Dae-jo never wanted to hurt innocent people. Most of his actions were driven by one goal, to protect his younger sister. So she chooses to help him. The next day, Han goes outside to buy groceries and unexpectedly encounters the police chief. He suspects that she knows where Dae-jo is hiding. But Han remains calm and pretends that she knows nothing. At the same time, North Korean authorities bring Dae-jo's younger sister into South Korea. They plan to use her as leverage to force Dae-jo to surrender the diamonds. Soon, Dae-jo receives another call from his superiors. Their message is simple. Give them the diamonds or his sister will die. Dae-jo immediately realizes that he has no choice. His sister is the only family he has left. The following morning, he takes the diamonds to the designated meeting point. The sound of his motorcycle wakes Han, and she immediately senses that something is wrong. Worried that Dae-jo is walking into a trap, she contacts the police chief and asks him to help. At the meeting point, Dae-jo finally sees his sister. After everything he has endured, he is finally standing face to face with the person he has been fighting to protect. But the reunion quickly turns into a nightmare. As Dae-jo prepares to hand over the diamonds, someone suddenly shoots him. Chaos erupts. Before the attackers can finish him, the police chief and his men arrive. Using the confusion, Dae-jo chases after the people taking his sister away. He tries to stop their vehicle, but it escapes. For a moment, Dae-jo believes he has lost his sister again. Then several police vehicles block the kidnapper's escape route. His sister is rescued. Dae-jo quietly walks away, relieved that she is finally safe. He believes his life as an agent might finally be over. But the organization has one final move. They target Han. That night, Dae-jo receives another threatening call. The message is clear: if he does not surrender the diamonds, Han will become their next target. Dae-jo realizes that everyone close to him is being endangered because of his mission. This time, he decides to end everything. Before leaving, Dae-jo calls the police chief and deliberately leaves his phone near the door, so the authorities can track his location. Then he goes alone to the meeting point. Once there, Dae-jo confirms that Han is being protected. He then pulls out the diamonds and throws them into the air. As the attackers rush toward the scattered diamonds, Dae-jo uses the distraction to fight back. But he is quickly surrounded. A bullet strikes his shoulder, and he is forced to retreat while protecting Han. Dae-jo fights desperately, but there are simply too many enemies. Eventually, he finds himself trapped. Then he notices a gas cylinder nearby. Dae-jo grabs the explosive device he had prepared earlier and throws it toward the cylinder. Before triggering the explosion, he makes sure Han is protected. A massive blast tears through the area and takes down several attackers. For a brief moment, it appears that Dae-jo and Han have escaped. But an armed man suddenly grabs Dae-jo from behind and forces him to the ground. At the same time, police sirens approach. Han desperately struggles to get free. The North Korean leader regains consciousness and raises his weapon. But before he can attack, the police chief arrives. Dae-jo points his own weapon toward the police chief and explains that he can never return to North Korea. He only wants his sister to be free. He is even willing to sacrifice himself if that is what it takes to protect her. Then Dae-jo suddenly turns toward the North Korean leader and shoots him. Another exchange of gunfire follows. Eventually, both Dae-jo and his enemy collapse. Han watches helplessly as the police chief rushes Dae-jo to the hospital. But Dae-jo is already critically wounded. With his remaining strength, he repeatedly whispers his younger sister's name. Even in his final moments, he is thinking only about whether she is safe. Despite everything he has survived, Dae-jo eventually dies from his injuries. The camera slowly pulls away as the world continues moving around him. Dae-jo's story may have ended, but his final wish lives on. Han takes responsibility for his younger sister. She welcomes the lonely girl into her life and promises to protect her like a real older sister. The two girls, who were brought together because of Dae-jo, become each other's source of strength. And in the end, Dae-jo's greatest mission is finally completed, not by returning home, but by making sure the person he loved most could live safely. With his sister finally protected and his sacrifice remembered, the story comes to an emotional end.